It was the year of fire.
The year of destruction.
The year we took back what was ours.
It was the year of rebirth.
The year of great sadness. The year of pain.
And a year of joy.
It was a new age. It was the end of history.
It was the year everything changed.
The year is 2261. The place, Babylon 5.
Hello and welcome to Chatz, the television podcast, Season 6, Chatzylon 5. My name is Alan, and do you know how the ancient Greeks defined happiness? I don't know offhand, but I'd be willing to bet it involved 3 goats and a co-host named Magellan.
Meow.
You ever think about how that's like a sex joke? Like, he's not. No. The 3 goats thing.
I know The Men Who Stare at Goats is a movie. I think it's that.
What's it about? Yeah, I do think it's that. What's that about?
You know, I did see it and I don't remember. I just remember it's like they have psychic powers in the army or something.
What?
Maybe I just spoiled The Men Who Stare at Goats.
This like 11-year-old weird indie movie.
I think it's like the military is trying to develop like psychic soldiers, but they're not doing well, and it's kind of funny, but it's not actually that good. Something like that.
It might not have that guy in it, but it feels like it has him in it.
George Clooney?
Sam. He's got a beard.
Sam Beard.
Am I on drugs? What's going on? The Men Who Stare at Goats. The Men Who... Okay, we'll just answer this question lightning fast and we'll move right along.
Yeah.
George Clooney. It doesn't have the guy I'm thinking of. It's got George Clooney, Ian McGregor, and Jeff Bridges.
You're thinking of Sam Elliott?
No, dude. Sam Rockwell. Sam Rockwell. I think it's Sam.
No, he's not in it.
He just seems like he would be in it. He smells like he'd be in it.
Yeah, he probably smells.
What? Celebrities that smell. Here's my top 10 YouTube list. Number 1.
I was just, you know what I was just thinking about the other day is how Henry VIII must have smelled really bad.
Why specifically Henry VIII?
I was watching a video of like, it was a parody of the ABBA song Money, Money, Money.
Okay.
But it was Henry, and it's him killing his wives.
Classy video.
And then I was like, he must smell really bad.
He's the one who had all the wives, right?
Yeah, he had 6.
It's a lot of... But if you had 2 more, you could have won the prize, Henry. Come on, you lazy man.
Yeah, everyone knows that on your 8th wife, you get a prize.
Well, because if you're Henry VIII, you have to have 8 wives.
Yeah, everyone knows this, Henry.
It's first grade, Henri.
Yeah, you didn't go to first grade, Henri.
There are some countries where they say Henry as Henri.
I guess he has an honorary degree from first grade because he didn't go.
Oh, he's got an honorary I'm rich degree. This weird podcast is called Chatzylon 5, and occasionally my friend Magellan and I talk about 2 episodes of it called Classic TV Show. This week we are continuing our journey through Season 4 of Babylon 5, and we watched Season 4, Episode 15, No Surrender, No Retreat, as well as Season 4, Episode 16, The Exercise of Vital Powers. No Surrender, No Retreat was written by J. Michael Straczynski. It was directed by Michael Vehar. It aired May 26, 1997, and it takes place from September 2nd to the 4th of 2261. Magellan, what happened in this episode?
In this episode, following the destruction of 2 refugee transports, Captain John Sheridan assumes the offensive in the Earth Alliance Civil War, starting with the liberation of Proxima 3. Meanwhile, Londo Mollari and G'Kar begin the slow process of rebuilding their frayed relationship. Alan, what did you think of No Surrender, No Retreat?
It's that classic Chatz thing where the A plot is just kind of good and the B plot is amazing.
Yeah.
It's 100% one of those. Because the Sheridan stuff kind of got interesting when he's like recruiting all the different ships to work with him. Right. There's like urgency and meaning and like symbolism and all this good stuff. But it just kind of is like continuing this saga of Sheridan is charismatic and truly does honestly care about fixing the problems on Earth through brutal military might. I didn't have a ton of notes on the A plot, so we can kind of walk through that through just memory, feel through the dark together. But the B plot, the Londo and G'Kar stuff, you had texted me saying that This is one of those things where we hadn't seen them for most of the season, or like half the season now, and then we see it, and you wish that there was another half of the season to just to focus on that, because they unravel so much of their relationship in this couple of scenes that it's like, I just want to watch them do this more. I just want to keep seeing this get figured out. What did you think of it?
Oh man, I really didn't realize how much I was missing those guys, but I was missing them so much. As soon as you see Londo and G'Kar, it's like, whoa, man, it's been too long, you guys. So do you want to start there with those guys, and then we'll do the other stuff?
Sure. Get into the fun stuff.
Basically, everybody starts towards the beginning of the episode with Sheridan saying to all of the League of Non-Aligned Worlds people, as well as G'Kar and Londo, listen, we're going to go attack Earth. You have treaties, you have mutual defense treaties with Earth. If we attacked Earth, it would set off those treaties. So part of the deal of us protecting you is you're not allied with Earth anymore. G'Kar says, hey, that doesn't sound so bad. Earth let us get invaded by the Centauri and then didn't do anything with the shadows either, so screw them. We don't care. And then most of the other aliens decide to sign on and agree. And then later, we see that, there's a moment where Veer, who I also missed very dearly.
Great work from Veer.
Veer's talking to Garibaldi, I think, right? And Garibaldi's looking for Londo, or no, and then Veer lets slip that they're invading Earth. Garibaldi didn't know. And then he offhandedly says, like, oh, Londo's going to meet with G'Kar. And in your head, you're like, oh, no. What scene are we about to see? So Londo goes to G'Kar's quarters, and he says, I think this is the first time I've been here. Which, is that true? Because wasn't there that time where G'Kar, like, destroyed his mind in his room or something? Or was that in Londo's room?
I thought it was in Londo. No, that was definitely in Londo's room.
Okay. But Londo says, I've never been here before. Hey, man, what's up with you? Man, I loved that moment. It, like, shocked me to full attention. G'Kar says, oh, I had the interior decorators take the chains out of here. And then Londo was like, oh, you smell like butts, or whatever he said. And then he's like, ugh, how quickly we go to insulting each other. I'm not here to do that. I'm trying to talk to you, man.
The line was, isn't it amazing how quickly we fall into familiar patterns as soon as we come into one another's orbit? Like comets that flare when they get near the sun. You have to be Londo Mollari to drop a line like that casually.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
He's grown so much. Both of them have grown so much, and yet they still hold on to this resentment and, difficulty between each other. And it was beautiful to see Londo reaching out and trying to offer an olive branch. Because both of them know, like, it's no good for either of us to hold on to this century-old grudge. It will destroy us both. And Londo says, listen, you were trying to help your people, but you also helped my people, and I realized that maybe we should be helping each other. So I thought that we could both actively say that we support Sheridan and say, like, he's doing the right thing. We're issuing a joint statement that says that. That's Londo's plan. G'Kar sort of lets him talk about it. And then he's like, oh, G'Kar, remember when you bought me a drink in that one episode where you were so happy? Oh, man.
Remember that?
Yeah, you remember that? Oh, God, that was brutal. Anyway, I'm getting you a drink. Let me pour a drink for you. Let's do this thing. And it seems like Jakar's going to drink it, but then, he pours it back into the bottle.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here, because I think you can definitely read this if you're watching this show week to week, like, Jakar's being unfair. Like, we want to see this olive branch be extended and taken. We want it to go well. Mm-hmm. And we want this moment where he takes the drink, he puts it in the glass, and he drinks it. But you got to remember, I mean, they talk about it. They've done this before, and Londo has lied about it. Londo has said, like, we're all good, no more problems, like, water under the bridge. This exact scenario has happened at least once, if not more than once, in their friendship, in their relationship. Why would G'Kar ever trust him this time, especially after all that's happened? Like, And Londo says, like, it's not fair. I've given you a lot. I've given you stuff I didn't have to give you. I gave you it on Homeworld, but I didn't have to give it to you. Like, why do you have any reason left not to trust me? Jakar has this, like, painful hurt in his heart that he can't get over. That's like, no, it doesn't work like this. We don't have this, like, cute moment where we share a drink anymore. We're older than that. We're mature than that. And it really does show so much growth from him.
Yeah. One of the first lines that Jakar says to Londo kind of says everything, where Londo says, "Oh, hey, how's your eye?" And Jakar says, "It sees."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like, get out. I don't want to talk to you.
Right, because one of the last times they spoke was when they ran into each other in the hallway or whatever, outside of social studies, and he was like, let's try to make this the last time I ever see you.
Yeah, and then Londo's going out of his way to have an audience with Jakar, just against what he said. I think what's at play here is that Londo is just in a privileged position.
He really
when it comes to saying, "Hey, let's put this behind us," because what just happened is his world invaded Jakar's and leveled it to the ground, and now he's like, "Okay, well, let's let bygones be bygones."
It's like, no, you don't get to say that. You did it.
You can't just decide to exit the cycle of violence because you're out on top.
Yeah. Like, would Londo have done any of this stuff if he was in need or if he was the one who had lost everything?
Right. Like, if the roles were reversed, you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I don't think so. And that's what's kind of impossible about a situation like this is one side is always in the position of, you hurt us and we're going to take our revenge. And so for Londo and Jakar both, it's about giving up pride, but it's different kinds of pride.
Right.
Because Londo, it was a pride of like, he had it all, you know? Mm-hmm. He had everything that he thought he'd wanted all of these years that he was sparring with Jakar. Mm-hmm. And he realized, like, no, I don't like this. I'm going to give this up. And that's growth in a sense, but it is not hardship to the extent that Jakar has experienced. Or the pride that he had to give up is he needed to, like, humiliate himself and injure himself over and over and over again. And
physically,
essentially,
spiritually, mentally, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and essentially turn himself into a pariah among his own people. In that moment where he, laughs and walks away from them as they loot the Centauri throne room that they put on Narn. So he's been utterly and entirely broken in the name of preserving his people. And now Londo comes to him and he's like, "Come on, man. Like, we're cool. We're cool. We both went through some stuff. It was a tough year, but like, things are fine now, right?" Right. So you can't blame Jakar for wanting this, at least a little moment of middle finger. And he has that. And I love Londo's reaction because he blows up in the middle of the scene. Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Why aren't you giving me anything? I'm trying to be nice to you."
Yeah. And when Jakar pours in the drink, he realizes, like, oh, I'm like trying to manipulate him.
Yeah.
I wasn't being genuine. I was trying to like win. Mm-hmm. All right. I'm out of here.
Both of these folks still need to get over the thing that Jakar saw in his vision so long ago, where it was like, you need to get over pride. What you have to be the first one to say sorry. Like, one of you has to stop gunning for the other person. That's the only way for this to end. Is for both of you to give up your pride, like over and over again. That's been beaten into his head. And there are two moments in this episode that I can remember of people's doorbells ringing on the ship, on the station, and they're not answering right away. The first one is Veer, when Garibaldi comes to him, and the reason he's not answering is because he's asleep, he's hungover, etc. He's having a rough go of it. We'll talk about that scene. But the second one is this moment where Jakar is like wide awake, very aware, and Londo's ringing the doorbell. He knows it's Londo. He knows to expect him. And he's just going to make him wait. He's just going to make him ring the doorbell a couple times. He's like, "I'm not going to answer it. I want to see you wait for it."
Yeah.
He could just open it, but he's still holding on to this I want to make him suffer just a tiny microscopic way by making him ring the door more than once or twice. He can't give up on that stuff, and it's on one hand really heartbreaking, but on the other hand I totally empathize with him in these moments where you can tell that somebody's hurt you so many times and you're like, why do I keep doing this? It's not ever gonna be worth it.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm curious then why you think he does agree to do it by the end.
Because Jakar's also, he's had his come to Jesus or come to Jaquan revelations.
Yeah.
About how you have to let these things go. You can't harbor these resentments or desires for revenge because ultimately they tie your people to forever war with somebody else, and you're never going to become great or long lasting if you do that. And I think he thinks about it and realizes I once again have to set my pride aside and realize that Londo is proposing something that is right and that makes sense. And Londo says, listen, I had a revelation where I became the bad guy. I loved this, where Londo says, I became the bad guy, or the villain, or the enemy, he says. And it made me realize that I have no idea who the enemy is, because it was me for a moment.
He finally has that moment. You want it so bad.
Yeah, and he essentially says, listen, Jakar, I don't know who the bad guys are anymore, but I know who the good guys are, and Sheridan's a good guy, and we got to get behind him. And I think Jakar agrees. So he finds Londo, and he says, okay, I'll sign the thing. I still hate you. I don't want to sign on the same page that you do. I love that.
John Hancock ass just being I get the big signature.
Yeah.
And I don't want it next to yours.
Right. But just a beautiful resolution of that. And I can't wait to see where that goes.
Yeah. It's one of the best acted scenes too, between Peter Jurassic and Andreas Katsulas being fully into their characters, understanding who they are and what they're coming from, borrowing so much history and bringing it to this moment. Mm-hmm. I think a connecting theme actually between the A and B plots this episode is this idea of holding on to empty promises or empty sort of lifestyles that you thought made sense but now don't in the current world.
Interesting.
Because the people that Sheridan is trying to recruit are all from I guess the Earth military, if I understood this correctly.
Yeah.
He's finally beginning his open attacks, and he says, it's gonna suck for a while. This is gonna be one of the hardest fights we're gonna get in, and a lot of you are gonna die. But for the first step is going forward. We have to do something. So they're attacking these ships, and
yeah. So we go to Proxima 3, which is
yes.
the outer colony of Earth, basically. And yeah, like you're saying, they know that there are 8 battle cruisers stationed on Proxima 3. And part of the beginning of the episode, why I think there weren't a lot of notes in your notes, was that a lot of the A plot was, okay, we're going to go fight. Okay, can you make sure that things are happening? Can you make sure we know the stuff? Marcus is learning information, whatever. It's just getting us there. But we learned that 2 of the cruisers have gone out of their way to destroy civilian targets. 2 of them have actively avoided that. And the other 4, we have no idea. And that's what we're rolling into. And
the first one he runs into, the Heracles, is piloted by Captain Trevor Hall, played by Ken Jenkins, a.k.a. Dr. Kelso from Scrubs. Just doing his serious military man character.
I didn't think anything could be weirder than seeing Bryan Cranston in this show, but I was wrong.
I love that. Weirder. I love that the Earth Force people are where we get is the avenue for weird comedians in the show. So he's a Clark loyalist, and he's you're going against Clark, why would you go against our boss, all of this stuff. He's kind of the person that Sheridan realizes he can't get through to. He tries to. Yeah. But he's this guy is stuck in his ways. He's an older person. He is committed to the cause. I might just end up having to fire on him, and that's going to go badly. But like, well, we have to do it.
Right. What else are we supposed to do?
Exactly. And then they have the other ship, the EAS Vesta, which is piloted by my new favorite captain from Earth Force, Captain Edward McDougan, aka Captain Mackie, which I know just because Sheridan has the moment where he goes, like, he's yelling at Kelso, not Kelso, but the guy.
Just call him Kelso. It's fine.
It's yelling at Kelso, being like, come on, like, be cool for 5 minutes, dude. And then Mackie comes in, he's like, what's up, guys? I logged on. And he's like, Mackie! Hey, buddy! Because they're all military friends.
Yeah. Mackie was also jarring to me because I just watched the Netflix series Mr. Iglesias, which is like Gabriel Iglesias' bad sitcom about being a high school teacher. I mean, it was fun to watch, but it is subjectively not good. And he's like the crotchety old teacher guy on the staff in that.
Wow.
So it was weird to see him also being like, you know, the older mentor dude, but on the ship. It was also jarring. Right.
And he's the one who's like, dude, we have orders. Like, why would I go against the orders? And then Sheridan's like, you are the only person who gets to change things right now. Like, if you, like, we learned in military academy, like, you don't follow orders that are illegal or unjust. Like, you have the power as a soldier, as a captain, to supersede your orders. That you're allowed to do that. This is a very, like, military movie thing. Yeah. It's being like, oh, maybe the higher-ups are wrong. You know, it's 101 stuff. But it's exciting to watch.
It was a cool moral conundrum that is placed before this guy of, yeah, you're supposed to follow orders, but also if you know that something is wrong, then you also have a responsibility not to follow certain orders. And I appreciated seeing Mackie take that into consideration and say, okay, then my response is just to do nothing.
Right.
That is like the best thing for me to do. I'm not going to disobey orders. Like, I'm not going to go against orders and counter them, but I'm also not going to do them because they're wrong. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to be inactive. And by the end of the episode, he decides, well, you know what? I'm going to ride with the Sheridan guy because he's doing the right thing.
Because passiveness in a time of war is like akin to, you know, inaction and, you know, supporting a certain cause by not acting. Mm-hmm. I love all the, like, minutia of the way that power gets handed off in these scenes. I love Kelso telling them that, like, okay, Mackie, you've been relieved of duty, and now Lieutenant Philby is the captain of your ship. And then, like, the camera's, like, focused tight on Mackie's face, and he turns, like, 2 inches to the right, and Philby has a PPG pointed at his face, and he's like, I always knew you wanted a promotion, Bob. Never knew how badly until now.
So silly.
Again and again. Cool. That's Babylon 5 is a silly. It's a deeply silly show concerned with deeply silly basic political ideas that I love seeing. Mm-hmm. And then Philby gets subdued by the rest of the crew. We don't see this, but Mackie's like, yeah, they took care of him. They knocked him out. He's fine. And then Kelso is overseen by or superseded by Commander Sandra Levitt. Mm-hmm. Who's like, hey, you're like, she's doing what Mackie's doing, which is like, you gave me an order. I know you're my boss. You're going to die because you can't accept that you might be wrong, and then things might be bigger than you. And he's like, that's stupid. And then she takes him out. Or not, doesn't take him out, doesn't kill him, but she assumes command and like relieves him at command and all that stuff.
Yeah, that was a great fuck yeah moment.
Yeah. And then we get the cool, like, collecting our victories moment where Sheridan explains to all of the captains, like, here's what your options are. You can stay and defend Proxima 3 on our side. You can go back home and probably go, like, get arrested for war crimes.
Yeah. Just so you know, not our problem right now, but that could happen. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Or you could go with us on our side and fight with us, and that would be super funny. You would die a noble cause, probably. I recommend it. Anyways, you guys can decide.
Your choice.
Your choice, totally 100%, but I'm just saying you should pick this one. They're all like, we'll think about it, and then, like, it's pretty much a good split. Nobody, like, abandons, which is great.
Yeah.
But Mackie and Kawagawa and I think a couple others are like, yeah, we'll go fight with Sheridan, and like 1 or 2 ships stays on Proxima 3. I love it.
Yeah, it has a different texture than previous wars that we've seen. It's cool that every conflict that we see in the show is philosophically different, because the Shadow War is totally different. Like, you're not going to talk to the shadows and convince them that they should ride with you. The Minbari Civil War maybe has some echoes of this. Like, Delenn and Sheridan are kind of doing similar things of trying to reunite their worlds, but the enemies are different, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not as if there's deep-seated caste conflict on Earth. It's a matter of military dictatorship and
it's less caste conflict and more class conflict. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, right. Or just more like there's one guy who's bad.
There's a bad guy.
Instead of we resent each other kind of thing.
Exactly. We have a unified villain. I think that's one of the most fascinating things about both of these episodes is that we're coming to understand that there isn't anybody really out there except like Kelso who likes Clark.
Right. And even he doesn't, I don't think he likes Clark.
He's just he's the boss. We work for the boss.
Yeah. He's just decided like, this is how things are. We're just going to do what we're supposed to do.
Right. I love that stuff. And it comes to blossom even more so in the second episode, but especially regarding Garibaldi, who ends this episode because earlier he runs into Veer. Is it him? Is it? No. He presumably hung. No, it is him. Veer is like hung over in his room, which is adorable. He's woken up by Garibaldi, who's like, "Where's Londo?" And then Veer is the one who slips that Sheridan's plan is to go take out Clark.
Yeah, well, and don't forget that Veer wakes up in a cold sweat, being like, "I didn't do it." So he's still super guilty about murdering. I don't even remember his name.
Morden,
the guy that I love. No, not Morden.
Cartagia.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Who was my new favorite side character recently?
And Mr. Verini.
No.
Although he is great.
No, someone from the last. Oh, Neroon. That's right.
Yeah,
it's
we got
either Neroon or Cartagia are my favorite.
We got a very good email about Neroon tonight, actually.
Oh, nice, great.
But before we get to that, the episode does end because in that moment Garibaldi's like, "Oh shucks, Sheridan's off his rocker. I can't work with this guy anymore. I'm out of here." He is checking out, and the guy's like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "Mars." And then he's like, "All right, cool. That's cool, I guess." Well, for how long? And he's like, "Forever.
Not coming back."
So emo.
Yeah, super emo.
It's like Garibaldi's outie, which is a bummer. But like, I almost feel like we've just had this like angry Garibaldi for so long that I no longer remember him as the lovable rogue. Isn't that sad?
I just want my guy back. I want to know what's going on.
I got some theories. We'll talk about some theories in the second episode.
Next episode.
But before we get there, let's read said emails.
Let's do it. All right, so we've got one email to look at right now because we are recording ahead of time. We're actually going to be recording ahead of time for the next few, so I think we might after today record additional email segments later. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do those.
Oh, you could do those, right?
Yeah, because Alan's going to France pretty soon.
Yeah, heads up for folks. August 10th to the 21st, I will be out of the country, so the chat schedule is going to be a little wonky. It shouldn't actually affect the release schedule at all.
It actually shouldn't. Yeah, you shouldn't see an interruption, but we might be behind on emails, but I'll make sure that gets some.
Exactly. I'm handing off the keys to a very competent boy.
Vroom, vroom, baby. But we do have one email to look at right now from Ryan, related to our discussion last week, specifically talking about Neroon, which is awesome. And the subject line is "My boy Neroon." Ryan says, "This will be a long one from me as I have many things to say about my boy Neroon. So upon my rewatch and listening to your podcast, I have come to really appreciate Neroon, his place in the show, and his dynamic to Delenn and her set of values. The cool thing about his character is that he never truly was a villain, and especially not the typical warrior man with a grudge and an itch for war, but a man from a different set of values from the Minbari whom we typically see. I think it adds to the world building in the Minbari as a race to show the different perspectives and how those ideas can be looked over or judged incorrectly due to caste prejudice. As we saw in Grey 17 is Missing, Neroon's warrior caste military perspective is a valuable one, to have. And we've seen that the warrior style is valid time and time again when it comes to other races, like for the humans, with Sheridan's warrior tactics, which are usually applauded as good. As a viewer, since we always see the Minbari from the perspective of the religious caste, Neroon comes across as ruthless at times, but really he wasn't that bad, especially since he was like the only good warrior caste member we've seen in the show. So when it comes around to him being a good guy, it rings true, because he's always a good guy, or he's always been a good guy, even if he was arrogant and flawed at times. After all, so has every other good guy character in the show, so why not Neroon? Agreed so far. Mm-hmm. Ryan goes on to say, some interesting things to think about are that when we first meet Neroon, he is traveling around the galaxy displaying the body of a respected warrior leader who was once a respected member of the religious caste. In that episode, when Neroon finds out Delenn secretly cremated the body, he is flummoxed as to the explanation of why she did that. For you see, Neroon couldn't understand at that time that the man who served as a great warrior and died as one could also have still been a man of religion. After all, the caste system exists to define where you fit, even in death. By the end of Neroon's journey in the show, he discovers that perhaps we are more than the caste system and can be in tune with more than one. For Neroon defined himself as a warrior, but died realizing his heart was religious. So I think we thought that Neroon was the one who started religious caste, but we were misremembering, and it was the guy that he was parading around.
Yeah, and I think that's a more interesting version of events.
Yeah.
But good correction.
Mm-hmm. That journey for Neroon is very similar to the dead warrior leader, for whom he couldn't understand was a man of multiple facets that reached outside of the assigned caste system. To dig deeper into the parallels of Neroon and the leader he loved so much, both of their bodies get turned to ash. The dead leader's cremation was done out of respect, and in the hopes of fooling the Minbari that the body had ascended to the point of a holy miracle, while Neroon's death actually does act as a form of divine ascension to the point that an empty place is left in his honor. For through his actions and death, the Minbari basically give him the equivalent of being canonized as a saint. That's a cool connection. I didn't.
Yeah.
And Ryan wraps up by saying, you mentioned that you were shaking or about to cry during the forming of the new Great Council, but for me, I practically weep at the bit in which he mentions that the spot left open in the middle is for Neroon. Yep. For in any other show, a character like that wouldn't have gone down this road and earned such an honorable, world-changing moment like having a spot left for him. Especially when you think back in Season 2, it was a horrifying revelation to Delenn that he was on the council to begin with. A wonderful character arc of a man realizing something he didn't once understand before, and all done in 5 episodes spread through 4 seasons. Honestly, it is amazing that such care was taken with a character that in other hands could have been just an angry warrior guy with a grudge. Kind regards, Ryan. It's great. What a fitting eulogy for Neroon.
Truly, the best Neroon email we could have asked for, and a beautiful email in general.
Didn't Neroon replace a religious caste person on the Great Council or something?
I'm not going to guess and be wrong again. I refuse to be wrong.
If he did, that's another level of interesting irony that he took that role and then eventually became a religious person himself.
Neroon, beautiful. John Vickery, beautiful. Ryan, beautiful. All above. And I like this idea that, again, he is coming to understand religion and spirituality through seeing it happen and understanding that like self-sacrifice is a part of that. And so that's why he does it. Is he's like, oh, this is the way. Like he finally finds his answer. And like, of course he's going to do it. Of course he's going to throw himself into the starport light because that's what you're supposed to do. He like feels the divine calling and shouts to the heavens about it. It's very good stuff. And shout outs to Delenn too for keeping that slot open for him. Since our release schedule is a little wonky, that's the email we got this week. Made it just under the wire, but thank you to Ryan for that. And as always, folks can email us, chatspod@gmail.com if you want to have your emails read, or tweet at us at chatspod. We'll do those too. Being a little light on the tweets lately, although we do get good responses when I tweet stuff. So, hit us up. We'll be right back, though, after this brief musical break to discuss the exercise of vital powers.
Welcome back to Chatzylon 5. The second episode we watched this week was Season 4, Episode 16, The Exercise of Vital Powers. It was written by J. Macy, directed by Jean Lafia. It aired June 2nd, 1997, and it takes place from September 6th to September 8th of 2261. Alan, what did you think of The Exercise? Well, before you even tell me what you thought, tell me what happened in The Exercise of Vital Powers.
Majan, in this episode, what you need to understand is that Garibaldi arrives on Mars to meet his new employer, William Edgars.
Hey, what's going on?
Lita helps Franklin to make progress with the frozen telepaths, which is a terribly written sentence.
Yep.
How's your progress with the telepaths who are frozen? What? No. Great episode. Great episode. I love world building. I think William Edgars has established himself as one of the cooler side characters of the season. Just in terms of the role he plays as the like rich corporation holder who also wants to destroy the tyrant. I don't like him. I still don't trust him at all.
No, of course not.
Not even in the slightest, but he's fascinating, and what he's doing to Garibaldi and with Garibaldi is truly, truly engaging stuff, except for the part where he talks about the jihad party. That made me angry.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Okay. Let's just talk about that part. Well, what else happens in this episode? Oh, the telepath stuff. Should we just knock that out first?
I love our podcast and the fact that when a plot is short, we think of it as like a side quest that we can just really quickly finish and reflect
right.
it.
Well, I always, when I'm eating, I always eat the vegetables first.
Really?
Yeah, because I want to end on the thing that I like the most.
Yeah, I kind of do that. At restaurants, I do that for sure.
Yeah, so let's eat our vegetables first, then we can get that steak. We can put that steak in there. The
Garibaldi steak.
Yeah.
It's sort of a bagna cauda, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not steak. Zach Allen is like, hey, Lita, how you doing? Can you scan someone?
Don't worry, he wants to be scanned.
He likes it. It's cool. And she's like, no, that's so illegal, Zach. And he's like, he wants to. And she's like, oh, it's actually completely legal because you told me he wants to. He signed a waiver. She's like, oh, that sounds great. Dr. Stephen Franklin is stressing out a lot. I love Dr. Franklin when he's stressed out. This time it's because Sheridan is not telling him why he needs to take care of all these telepaths and what's in them and why. What's his sort of motivation? He's feeling a lack of motivation. Lita, when she's brought in by Zach, notices that there's a telepath in MedLab who's awake and up to something, and they have an ET phone home moment where they touch hands through glass. Franklin sees this and goes, oh, wait a minute, because the problem he's been having is that if they are able to get the telepaths conscious, the first thing they do is like start melding to technology and reading everyone's brains. They're like unhinged. They can't control them once they're awake, so he keeps them in stasis or whatever.
Right.
But she, Lita Alexander, because of her Vorlon stuff, is able to recognize that they have shadow tech in them. And she tells him that she saw a shadow ship and heard the sound of a shadow ship passing by when she looked through his brain. So he hires her to start doing that and to basically like help people while they're conscious.
Help like ease them into consciousness so that he can try to surgery them or something.
That's the idea, or at least help them in some way.
Yeah.
They have this all accelerates to a very, very dark scene where it kind of felt like they were making Lita seem like a bad guy of sorts. They're trying to help that same guy, and he wakes up and he's like freaking out, and Franklin is trying to like do his best bedside manner and be like, you're okay, the Shadow War is over, like we're not the bad guys, even though he looks up and sees gray aliens poking and prodding at him, which is very scary. And then he's like, nope, like I have an evil in me and I can't get it out. He takes like a knife or some scissors or something and like pulls it up to his neck like he's gonna stab himself. Franklin is doing his best to not be killed by him. He was choked by him earlier, so he's already a little out of sorts. And Lita goes into the guy's head against his permission and says, I'm not gonna let you do that. You're gonna go to sleep, and knocks the man out. This is one of those things I feel like they really have to dig into this a little bit at some point.
What? Tell me more about why you
because
feel
what
that.
she's doing is they make such a big deal about like she can't do this stuff unless she's getting paid for it, and if it's under like it has to be with consent.
Right.
She just like jumps into this guy's head and knocks him out. Like she does like the evil telepath thing. And it's for the sake of like safety and for the guy's own safety, but it's framed in a way that makes it seem like she's doing a bad thing.
Right. You can't really take this plot into consideration without also understanding how the Garibaldi plot fits into it. And the basics of that is that Edgar's is like, hey, telepaths are dangerous, and them existing is leading to a society where they have like unbridled power over us. And, you know, as much as you trust that Lita is a good guy, this is a moment where, as a viewer, I was scared and I thought, oh, whoa, she can just do that? She can just snap people to sleep? That is... I knew that she was powerful, but I never really stopped to consider what that power would look like. And,
I think it's a great... sorry to interrupt you, but it's just a great way to take Lita's character. Is like, now that we're talking about telepaths and whether or not, when and how they need to be regulated, it's so important to have a character who is an unregulated, not under Psychor telepath. And like see what they do with their power and how they try to use it for the greater good and sometimes fail. Yeah,
and we realize that the only thing standing between, Lita being a good telepath and her using her powers for bad reasons is that she has a very clear moral compass. And if it was any other person who had these powers, they would have taken over Babylon 5 easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to tie this all back, I mean, is there anything else to it? Oh, yeah, or actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Franklin gets really mad, and it's like, Sheridan, you're going to tell me once and for all why we're experimenting with the telepaths. And then this is kind of a cool moment where Sheridan's like, I'm going to re-encode this every 3 seconds, which is like their secret thing of being like, don't tell anyone. He's like, Franklin, is there anyone around? He's like, yeah, just the staff.
Yeah,
Sharon's like, get them all out of here.
Everybody's here.
Yeah, it's just me and all the friends. It's cool, though. You can tell me. And he's
Randall,
like, nope, make them go away.
Sandra, they're all here.
And he's like, he's like, Sandra, Kevin, Bob, Benita, go get a nap.
Yeah.
Go get some.
Don't worry about all the sick people here. Just go. Everybody take a nap at once.
Take 5. Just go grab a burg. Call it a little bit. Like it's silly.
Yeah.
We don't exactly see what Sheridan tells him, but we know that Lita asks him later, like, what's going on? He's like, this is a big deal, Lita. And she's like, why? And he's like, we're being reassigned, you and I. He's like, where are we going? He's like, we're going to Mars.
Nice.
Lita and Franklin are now going to Mars.
I'm into it.
I'm so into it. I just want the show to be on Mars already. Just get me there.
We're there. We're going. We'll be there.
All the Garibaldi stuff on Mars is fantastic. So give me that some more, please. And so to pivot,
what do you think they're there for? What is Sheridan's plan? You think?
I think that's where they're going to initiate the attack on Earth. I think that's the closest base they have.
They're going to no with the shadow telepaths though.
Oh, good question. Are they going to bring the telepaths with them?
Well, it seems like it, right? It seems like Sheridan's going to ride in with like some like a cavalry of telepaths.
That seems, if they're not consenting to that seems fraught.
Yeah, it seems really dangerous. Whatever it is that he's scheming to do. It seems like bad news. But for some reason, Franklin's like, this is the only way.
Oh, yeah, so it's got to be something nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're going to fight to finish taking back Mars once and for all with the help of these telepaths. And that's where we're going.
Yeah. What if Sheridan also wants to get rid of all telepaths?
Why would he want to get rid of all telepaths?
I don't know, because Clark in the
Psychor. True.
I don't know. Or he's just going to use the shadow telepaths to fight Psychor or something.
The thing that worries me about Sheridan, and I'm starting to lead, the more that the show talks about it, the less I think it's true. Because last week we talked about how much would it suck if Sheridan became president of Earth.
Did we talk about that?
We've definitely talked about how we would hate if that happened.
You texted me that today. I don't know if we talked about it on the show.
Really?
I don't know. Go ahead.
But no, basically our worry was that, and then once Garibaldi says at this rate Sheridan is going to replace Clark with himself, and that's just as bad, if not worse, because he's a why would you? He says this thing that's so. I guess, ripped from the headlines, where he's like, "Why would you let a military person run the government?" And you're like, "Huh."
Well, and the generals or the captains of the other ships say, "Hey, we're military. We shouldn't be making policy." As a retort to Sheridan's assault.
Yeah.
Which
hilarious considering the world we live in.
Right.
That military and policy are so often intertwined.
Yeah. But it does seem like, I was saying this to you earlier today, the archetype right now is that Sheridan is a sort of Julius Caesar figure.
Yeah.
Where he's kind of marching from faraway lands with this big army on Rome. And he's going to install himself as like a benevolent, unilateral leader. And who knows what comes of that. I don't really think that Sheridan is going to like install himself as the military dictator of Earth or something.
Right.
But I wonder what's going to happen, because he does seem pretty strongly committed to maintaining Earth's institutions. Mm-hmm. And it's all about, like, he says to is his name Mackie? Is that what it was?
Yes.
He says to Mackie, it isn't about the office, it's about this guy. It's about President Clark. And Mackie says, "You're splitting a very thin hair, Sheridan." So I wonder where that goes. Like, it seems like maybe Sheridan's going to have a revelation of this system is broken and this system needs to be changed.
That would be great. And then just sorry.
No, go ahead.
What's the solution?
What's the solution?
Like, if this system is broken, then what do they fix? Like, what if they get rid of Clark and he's like, "I don't want to be president"? What's the right way to do this?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. He talks about, like, sending things to the voters.
Yeah, he says give the people the power back.
Yeah, I just don't know what that looks like. I think a big part of it is, like, getting rid of Psychor feels like it would be important.
Yes,
to him.
Definitely.
But I don't know where we go from there.
We have a lot of mysteries with that. The fun thing is knowing that this will be answered this season.
Right, true.
Because they didn't write this to go another season.
Right.
So it's soon. We'll know.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to Mars. And meanwhile, on Mars, Garibaldi's recording his audio logs from there. This man who has a name which I can't remember, but he comes back a couple of times, asks Garibaldi to put on his name is Wade.
Wade? Oh my god.
What's up, Wade? He's asked to put on a blindfold because he can't know where Edgar's place is.
Mm-hmm.
He doubts, he stresses about it. He's like, seems like a bad idea, but he does it anyways, which is totally Garibaldi's plot in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, this seems like a bad idea. I'll do it.
Yeah, right.
Kind of becoming a running gag of sorts. He bumps into Lise as he waits to meet Edgar's. And she has this weird thing where she keeps telling him, like, you know, I don't trust my husband. Like, he's doing some nasty shit. Anyways, I do love him. And I respect him. He's doing amazing things.
Yeah.
Here he is. It's fine. Edgar's and Garibaldi have the first of many conversations.
Can we talk about Wade on the train real quick?
Oh, for sure.
This is such a silly moment that I loved. Is Wade's telling him, "Listen, you got to put on a blindfold. That's what Edgar wants." Garibaldi says, "I can't do that." Blah blah. And Wade's like, "Hey, listen, I respect that you don't want to follow someone's rules, but you may not know this about me. I was a lit major." And,
oh yeah,
and nothing is real. So except for this blindfold. Put it on.
I remember that. Yeah. Wade's fun.
I think he really was a lit major too. I believe him.
I believe it. I have no reason not to believe it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like good history stuff in this episode too. Speaking of like people majoring in things in college. But yeah, first of many conversations between Garibaldi and Edgar is where he's saying Clark needs to be stopped. I don't believe in him. The person who has to defeat him, though, can't be Sheridan. We can't give this to one person. This guy's a military guy. Just because you know him doesn't mean that he's the right person to take out Clark.
Well, and Edgar's argument is really interesting. So first he has to test Garibaldi to see if he's loyal. And so he like asks him some quiz questions, and he uses a telepath as a polygraph, basically. Do you like me? What do you think?
If I put on a dress, would I look cute?
Like, are you in love with my wife? What's going on?
In love with me?
Yeah.
What do you think about this telepath in front of you? Her name's Susan.
So Garibaldi answers all these questions to his satisfaction, except the one about being in love with his wife, and he is in love with Lise still. It
Of course.
seems like. And so Edgar says, okay, here's the deal. I hate telepaths. I think that they make it impossible for people to live people lives, right?
Yeah.
And you know what, Alan?
What's that?
He's not wrong.
Of course. It's the part where he argues that like the people with good ideas have them acted upon by people who are bad, like by bad people. And he talks about like the jihad had good ideas, but then the jihadists are terrorists, and that's a terrible thing. Or like the people who ran the French Revolution were good, but then the people who run the guillotines are bad. Like the actors are bad, but the thinkers are good. Mm-hmm. Is kind of his thesis. So he's like, we're going at this from a good idea, but Sheridan is not the right actor for this. Also, there's just so much slime with Edgar. It's like the fact that he has orange juice, which is so like Garibaldi's like, that's super weird. Where did you get that? And he's like, oh, like I had it as a kid, and I had them like synthetically make oranges and like bring original oranges from Earth back for me, just like when I was a little kid. Isn't that cool? And it's like, why can you do that?
Because he's rich as hell.
It's terrifying how rich he is. He also talks about how
was the thing with the like Nazis. He was saying that they had good ideas. I thought it was like, I didn't think that's what it was. I thought it was like how many people. His argument was like, it's not that people take power. It's that we let people take power.
That's what it was. You're right.
Because he says, like, how many people were actually Nazis? Like, putting
very
on
small
the Nazi
percentage.
uniforms, Nazis. Not many. But people in Germany allowed Hitler to be Hitler.
Yes.
And so he's saying, like, we are allowing Clark to be Clark. And we're allowing telepaths to be dangerous. And his argument against letting Sheridan roll in, which I think is kind of compelling and makes me wonder, is he says, listen, if Sheridan shows up, Clark is going to say to the Psi Corps, all right, no rules. You do whatever you got to do. And now suddenly you've opened the floodgates on telepaths, and there are no longer restrictions on what they're able to do or not. And the inevitable outcome of that is that we have a society run by telepaths.
Yeah, it's a very X-Men argument.
Yeah. And I Edgar's creeps me out, and I think he's a bad guy, and I don't think we can trust his word on its face. But I share his sentiment about the idea of telepaths being a danger to society.
But if they already exist, Magellan, what do you do with them now?
Right.
Like, how do you regulate that?
You can't do the creepy Edgar's thing where he has a room where he's like poisoning them on tables and stroking their faces or whatever.
Blech. That's perfect. That's exactly what you need to do.
No. And Wade says,
Gross, man.
Hey boss, I'm just, poisoning these people for you.
And he's like, they're sick. They need to get fixed. Just kill all of them. Just wipe them out. It's gross. He's a nightmare. I love the visual language that Babylon 5 uses to tell you that a room is evil or mysterious, is that there's no lights. Just like, how do you get around in a room like that? How does that lab like function with no lights?
Right, yeah, it just practically doesn't make any sense.
An unremarked upon moment before all of the good Edgar's conversations is when Garibaldi is escorted into his room on Mars by Wade. And it's like something out of like a really good indie movie where the room is tiny. It's a bed. It's a bed with 4 walls around it and no windows. And Wade is like, just don't touch anything. He's like, touch.
Yeah, that's cute.
But then it's just like, you're like, that's kind of funny and cute. But then he just sits in bed and looks up and the camera like pulls out and you're like, this guy's fucking alone in the middle of nowhere doing something for someone he barely knows.
Yeah, right.
Like, no wonder he craves like this understanding and he so badly wants to know the guy's plot. Is he just has no control in his life right now. Things are just happening. It's the same reason why when he talks to Lise, and he's like, can we just figure this out? Like, can we just answer this relationship we have now, please? and she kind of breaks down for him and talks about how, like, I do love Edgar's. I do respect what he's doing. I think he's doing it in a wrong way, and I can't talk about it more than that. She's like crying about it. It's really sad.
Yeah, and she gives us perspective on the relationship that we haven't gotten from Garibaldi's telling of it.
Right.
And I think this is very true to life, that people walk away from relationships having a one-dimensional explanation for why things went the way they went. That, that is true to a certain extent, but is not a complete picture. I think every person who's been in a relationship has, like, oh, it didn't work out because X, Y, Z. And his version of it is like, oh, it didn't work out because she gave me this ultimatum, and, like, I felt like I had to go to Babylon 5, and, like, I was struggling with alcohol. He has these reasons. And she's like, well, you never said that you loved me before I did.
Right.
You never seemed like you were on the path to marriage or anything. So don't tell me that, like, we had this amazing thing that I didn't return to, because, like, we didn't. You were shitty to me.
Yeah, exactly. You never committed. She says, I'm too old to not commit to anything anymore. Like,
yeah.
You always told me, like, I'll get things figured out, or, like, I'll go to Babylon 5 and I'll come back and all this stuff, and then we'll get married. And she's like, no, like, for once in my life, somebody told me something and then they did it.
Yeah.
And she basically says, like, he was there. He was the one who said yes and, like, didn't waffle. And that's what made me choose him over you. And it's not a simple matter of, like, he had more money or whatever.
And the tragic thing is that Garibaldi has changed as a guy. And he is now the guy who can commit. Mm-hmm. But she just never saw that, and he never communicated that to her. And so it's this, like, oh, we missed our chance. But they're gonna kiss, right?
Yeah.
Probably. And then she'll die. I think I said this last week. She'll probably have a tragic death, yeah.
So my like actual legitimate Garibaldi theory after this scene is the following.
Okay.
It feels like it's solidified enough that all of the pieces are in order, and it would be satisfying if this happens. Garibaldi is not currently acting on behalf of Psychor. Like, he's not possessed in the way that, like, some characters can be possessed by telepaths. It's more of a control situation where he can be activated.
You think he's like a sleeper?
Yes, I think he's a sleeper agent. And they must have either nudged him or pushed him into this, like, anti-Sheridan idea that he's gotten in his head. Okay. And, like, it was already there, and they just kind of helped it spur along. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, that brought him to Edgar's because they know his connection to Lise. And through all of that, he's going to be getting close to Edgar's because, at the end of this episode, obviously, Edgar's is like, you're now going to be my top guy. The way you solidify yourself there is by bringing Sheridan to Clark. Mm-hmm. Prove it to me. I think in getting close to Edgar's, that is when somebody in Psychor is going to activate Garibaldi and have him kill Edgar's so that they don't have any mega corporations fighting back against them, or at least one less.
I guess he's going to be the one to do it. So there's, I will say now I have the feeling of our listeners having, like, looked this up.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh my God, how did they get that right? But also some of those things are wrong. I don't know the full story of what's right, but if I'm just pretending that I don't know anything and I'm listening to your theory, my two questions are, do we know that Psychor knows about what Edgar's is doing?
Right.
I guess we don't know. And then my second question is, like, did Psychor nudge for Garibaldi to get hired by him? Is Wade a Psychor guy or, like, in talks with them?
Wade probably is a Psychor guy. I mean, he kills telepaths, though. He's the one who kills the guys in the room.
Right. So I'm just wondering how Psychor would know what's going on with Edgar's and how they would know, like, how they would get Garibaldi to go to work for him.
Well, I think the connection between Edgar's and Garibaldi is Lise.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
He's like, oh, your husband has, like, he's like a rich guy. I should work with him. And, like, maybe that'll be the reveal. Is this, like, reverse explanation of, like, oh, this, and this all happened because Psychor put this idea in his head, and now it led to him being in this right moment at the right time.
I gotcha. Yeah.
It's my little pet theory I'm playing with. I'm not going to look anything up, though, I promise. So.
Okay, good. Don't.
We'll find out. We only have a couple more episodes left in the season. Speaking of which, the episode, like I said, ends with Edgar is telling Garibaldi that you need to bring Sheridan not to me but to Clark. And he says, how are you going to do that? No one else knows him better than you do. And he's like, the secret is his father. He takes regular expensive medicine for his blood disease. There's so little of it in the world that you could probably just track how he's getting it and paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you'll find Sheridan's father, and that's how you'll find Sheridan.
Creepy.
Ultra creepy. Ultra depressing, too, when you think about, like, the way you track pharmaceuticals around.
Right.
And it's like, we're hunting an old man. Like, the really creepy thing is that he's like, it's his father. You guys need his father. And Edgar says, like, no, it can't be that because we've spent millions and billions of dollars chasing this old man around the galaxy, and we can't find him. And I'm like, yo, like, that's so dark. They're just looking for his dad.
Yeah.
Very stressful pair of episodes, honestly.
For sure.
Can you tell me about the next pair of episodes that we're watching on Chatzylon 5?
Dude, I would love to.
Thanks, dude. I think we're at the point now where listeners were like, you should probably chill.
Oh,
with the Amazon summaries? Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to chill. Sorry, guys.
Oh my god, you have no chill.
Yeah, I have no chill. That's facts.
No chill, no... Can I... Okay, I'll read the non-spoiler ones if you read the ones that you want to read.
Yeah, let me just look and see if you're safe to hear these or not.
Fine!
Okie dokie.
Oh, I love these.
You read those first, and then we'll see if these are that different.
So next week on Chatzylon 5, we're watching Season 4, Episode 17, The Face of the Enemy. Amidst Sheridan's continuing shooting war against Earth, betrayal lurks in the shadows. Garibaldi finds new information about his abduction. That's what I want. And then Season 4, Episode 18, Intersections in Real Time, which is an amazing episode title.
Mm-hmm.
Sheridan's life is at risk.
Cool.
Which I like that.
These Amazon summaries, like, for each of those things is slightly more specific, but also more boring, so I'm not going to read them.
Fab. That's fab.
Cool.
Maggie, let's take it to the plug zone.
Let's do it, my friend.
Do you like that nickname? Can I keep that nickname?
You can keep it. I don't like it.
Oh.
So
fair enough.
That's my answer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, folks, if you want to email us questions, comments, or concerns, chatspod@gmail.com, chatzpod@gmail.com is the home of that. So is at chatspod on Twitter.
Yes.
Check us out on iTunes.
Yes.
Give us a review. Send us 5-star reviews. We love them. We'd love if you could check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/chatspod.
Please do it.
Basically, every Saturday you'll get some bonus content if you back us at $5 or more. Every month you'll get a movie commentary at $1 or more. We're watching 2010's The Last Airbender for the month of August. And we have a huge backlog of fun movies that we watched and did commentaries for, so you can sync that up with your stuff. $3 gets you that and Chatz Nights, which is our hangout show, which is a lot of fun and silly. And then the $5 is on the off weeks we do pilot chats where we watch the first episode of a new TV show that someone recommended to us, and we determine if it's a good chat show.
Yeah.
We just put our discussion of Argon, the Korean Netflix drama, which we liked a lot, I'll tell you that. And you can hear us get into it and talk about the first episode over there. $5 a month, patreon.com/chatspod.
Lovely.
John, what's your chatsum for this week?
I have two chatsums. They're both music chatsums. They're both hip-hop music chatsums, specifically. First of all, when I was an RA at Stanford University my senior year, I had a resident who is now a hip-hop artist. His name is Sun Kuma, and he just released his second EP. His first one was called Indica, and his second was called Sativa. And those are weed things.
From what I've been told.
From what I've been told. I've never smoked the weed myself, but I know what they're called. And you should check it out. It's like 7 songs or something like that, 6 or 7 songs, and it's quite fun to bump. Let me see what's the song that I'd recommend here. There's one that really slaps. It's a straight bop, but I can't remember. It's 8 songs on on Sativa there.
Yes, sir.
Well, thanks for that. I would say you can probably bump Chemistry. It's a fun one. It's the second song. But listen to the whole thing. It's only 21 minutes long. And you're supporting a person who's trying to be a bigger name. Speaking of bigger names, my second music recommendation, you guys, this past week, actually further back because this is being released later than when we're recording it, Chance the Rapper put out his first full-length album called The Big Day, and it is absolutely beautiful and funny and just clever. It's everything that you could want in a hip-hop record, and I encourage you to check it out.
Really? I didn't know it was funny.
Yes, there are some songs that are genuinely funny.
I'm waiting to album, as he was calling it on
album,
Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that one. Chance hasn't put out a full album ever.
Yeah, it's just EPs. I mean, what's the difference nowadays?
True, it's
but
length.
Yeah.
And which one can be classified by in Billboard charts.
Right.
So, he's very talented, and he also just put out a bunch of his mixtapes on Spotify. He's like older mixtapes that are good.
Yeah, Acid Rap's up there, 10 Days up there.
Oh, classics. Check that stuff out. Magellan, my Chatzylon for this week, if you allow me to bring it. I try to recommend video games very sparingly because, it's kind of like the highest commitment thing I could recommend. But
True.
I've been really enchanted by this new game on the Switch called Fire Emblem Three Houses. It's a new entry in the Fire Emblem franchise, long-running franchise. Japanese role-playing game. You play as a commander and a young commander in a military, and you have all these soldiers who you form bonds with and you can marry and have kids with, and some of the older ones. And it's sort of like a romance dating thing mixed with a tactical top-down strategy game.
Okay, sure.
They're notorious for being really difficult. They've had permadeath, and they are also the origins of the Super Smash Bros. Characters, Marth, Roy, etc.
Yeah.
Ike, those kids,
Are you?
Lucina, etc. Three Houses is really cool because it has this gimmick where instead of just being in an Eternity War, the world setup is that you are a new professor at this school that's it's like a cathedral that was converted into a school, so it's kind of like a military Hogwarts in a church. And there's these three houses. It's like the red, blue, and the yellow houses. They all have different names based on animals. And you're asked to teach at one of the houses. You can pick whichever one you want based on the little introduction to each of them. You meet all the students, and you start forming bonds with them, and you start teaching them. You spend a lot of the game, instead of going on dates, it's I'm actually going to teach you guys history, and that's going to help you learn how to use weapons better.
Yeah, that's my kind of game.
Yeah, so when I don't usually, like I said, I don't talk about the games I play that much, but I was like, Magellan, you would like this because you get to be a teacher to some shitty teens. And they all have unique little stories and problems, and then at the end of every chapter, it's all right, it's time for the big fight, and you pick your squadron, and then you take what they've learned and try to beat a war and go through a long story. It's really fun. I will say, if people haven't played one of these before, it's pretty challenging. It's harder than I expected. I've known the Fire Emblem series to be difficult, but I've had trouble beating the first real fight in the game so far.
Okay.
So definitely be patient with it. You set it down to easy, turn off permadeath if that scares you. And it's pretty forgiving in the long term. So it's if you lose a battle, it's you can keep all the XP you got in that battle and just do it again.
Cool. Okay.
So it's you can kind of throw your head against it and just beat it and enjoy the world and the charming characters. So
Nice.
Fire Emblem Three Houses on the Switch, if you got one of those. Check it out.
Heck yeah.
And that, dear listener, is going to do it for this episode of Chatzylon 5. Peace.